Okay, so today I'd like to show you what I believe is the most important physical practice that I teach, and which is really the cornerstone of everything I do. And it's the routine or the practice of suppleness. Okay, so I believe that the prerequisite for a happy, healthy, and injury-free lifestyle is to be soft and supple. And the children and mammals prove it. You know, suppleness is really a way to be injury resistant. If you ever watch a kid on the playground fall off, they don't really get hurt. They never seriously get injured. Yeah, they might cry a little bit, but they usually get up and play around again. Same with the cats, same with the dogs and other mammals. But it's us adults that sometimes we can miss a step, and because we're so tight and tense, we break ourselves. Okay, so it gets worse as we get older. So suppleness is really an armor for protection. Okay, now suppleness you are guaranteed when you're young, but then as you get into the sedentary lifestyle, you gradually lose and you become tighter and tighter because you're living in such a modern lifestyle where you lack a lot of movement and you are spending a lot of time in these unnatural shapes which, you know, turn you into that tight shell that you are. So suppleness needs to be practiced daily. You know, unless you live in the jungle, you need to practice suppleness daily because you sit every day and you don't move enough. And the suppleness practice which I teach, I call kinetic hygiene. And hygiene is basically the act of maintaining cleanliness. Okay? In our world, or in the context that I speak about, cleanliness means that your body is free of noise. Okay? When you have a body that doesn't click and crack and crunch anytime you move, you have a clean body. That's basically an equivalent for being supple. You know, supple bodies don't sound, they're not noisy. Whereas stiff bodies are very noisy and also very easy to get hurt. You're never far from an injury when you have like a lot of noise in your body. So this is the purpose. This is what we want to do. We want to do it daily. We want to do it often. And the thing with kinetic hygiene is that no matter how frequent you do it, the second you stop, you lose all the benefits. It doesn't matter, like for example, I brushed my teeth all my life, but if I stop today, I will still lose my teeth. Okay? So this is how I want you to view kinetic hygiene. It is really a practice of maintenance and intended to prolong your life. And it's something you should not negotiate with, you know? It's something you should always look forward to because it should enrich and really improve your life. And, you know, every day when you wake up and you feel you're a bit out of alignment, there's some click, some crack, some noise, it's time to do it. I like to do it daily, but you will find out what the right and optimal dose is for you. So here's my routine that I do. You might recognize some elements because, you know, I've borrowed, you know, from Pilates, from yoga, from gymnastics, and I've put together a routine that I can easily clean my entire spine, my shoulders and arms, my hips and my legs, and yeah, have a look. Feel free to adjust it, add stuff, remove stuff, but this is what I believe for the majority of people will keep them very clean and free of injuries. All right, let's begin with spine and legs. All right, now if I would really want to sum up kinetic hygiene, it would be simply ground contact and traction. These are really the two healing forces to really restore a supple and mobile physique. So even if you did not practice much suppleness training, but you would have spent, or you would be spending a lot of time on the ground, you can get all the suppleness benefits without even trying. Because it is truly the living in furniture that really messed up our bodies up. It's the time spent in padded surfaces which really make our bodies stiffer, which is quite a paradox because, you know, you would think the softer the surface, the more comfortable we are, but the softer the surface, the stiffer we get. So if you spend time on a firm surface, you will notice that the body has no chance but to surrender and start to open up its tissue, you know, while you're getting kind of foam rolled or massaged. So this is what I'm doing. I just start out on the floor and I move as if I just woke up from sleep, and you do these intuitive stretches. Then I move right away into what I call tuck and roll. I tuck my knees to my chest and my chin to my chest, and then I just kind of iron out the spine. As I'm rolling back and forth, I can hear a lot of noise, a lot of clicking, a lot of cracking, and I'm trying to get rid of it. I never count my repetitions really. I'm just trying to roll as long as I can until all the noise is gone. Once I feel the noise is gone, I go upside down and I base on my shoulder blades. You see, I'm also lifting up my head, which means there's no pressure on my neck. Okay? And now, if you do feel comfortable, you can go further and you can start stretching your neck. You know, the neck really needs that kind of stretch because, you know, we always put it on pillows. It's always in front of the screen. It's always hanging off our shoulders when we use our phone. So the neck is notoriously tight and needs that kind of treatment. So you see, I'm going to go with feet behind my head where my knees are almost placed on the floor next to my ears. And then I go one way, kind of open up the space between shoulder and head to stretch kind of the lateral side of my neck muscles. And then I go the other. And like any of those, I go very intuitively. I never count repetitions. I never measure the time. I go until I feel that the tightness has left and the noise has disappeared. This is when I know I had enough. So again, here I'm also passing from side to side. This is a bit more of a jiu-jitsu inspired motion. But yeah, that's kind of the first movement for the spine. It's the tuck and roll. So we want to kind of roll the spine in. Next, we want to twist the spine. And to do that, what I want to do is have the pelvis go one way, which you see, I drop both knees onto one side and I swing one leg over. This makes my pelvis turn one way, right? And then the head on top turns the other way. So I'm always looking away from my swinging leg. And as I'm doing these swings, I'm really twisting the spine. And when you do this the first time, you will hear a lot of popping, a lot of cracking. Do not be worried. This is absolutely normal. You know, when you have not cleaned for a while, your body is really a mess in terms of how much it's locked up, you know. So all these bubbles that you carry in your fascia, they need to pop and the tissue needs to get softer. So twisting is my second motion for the spine. Once I've completed a couple of reps and I see that the noise is subsiding, I take my knee, pin it to the floor, and then again turn away and get into this nice diagonal stretch, which, you know, stretches my abdomen, my obliques, my chest, even my bicep. And yeah, after I feel it's been enough, I change. Again, I would really want to point out, guys, that I don't really like to go strictly by time when I'm doing these kind of practices. It should be a feeling. It should be something that I kind of feel when I have enough or when I need more. This is what I would like to encourage you to do the same, especially with a practice like that. So now we have completed two movements for the spine. We have performed the tuck and roll and the twist. Now there's one motion missing, which is the arch, you know, probably one of the most important, you know, spine shapes that we have. It's also one that children learn very early in their life before they can roll over. So what I'm doing here, keep my feet close to my butt, and then I'm bridging, and I'm only connected with my shoulders, feet, and knee. Okay, that gives me the range for me to drive my pelvis forward, push my chest forward, and then throw my head back and open my chest. Okay, this is the safest back bend you can do. You know, in case you feel like something is wrong, you're already on the floor. You're not going to fall the same way you would when you would do a yoga wheel or a capoeira bridge. So repeat the same thing on the other side. Again, base all the pressure on the shoulder and feet. Okay, and then it's really up to you. I like to really inhale deep as I'm arching because I notice the inflated lungs give me a bit more, you know, range. I can go a little bit further, I can go a little bit deeper, and sometimes I can reach a pop or a crack, which I couldn't with empty lungs. So this is again the third and last element for the spine cleaning. Once you've performed all these three, the tucking and rolling, twisting and the arching, we then move on to the legs. Yeah, you see, I can sometimes not get enough of this. I really enjoy all of these practices, and like I said in the intro, I really want you to fall in love with this practice. If it is something that you feel like is a chore and you have to do, you know, you didn't really reach the right, you didn't apply it correctly, because it should really be something that is helping you and it is progressively, you know, improving your life and making you feel softer. So after arching, I always did a few rolls to kind of compensate for the overarching. You know, sometimes your extensors in the spine can cramp. All right, but now once we're complete with the spine, we move on to the hips. And I always begin the child's pose as you have seen before. And then I will move on into lateral rocking. You see, I'm kind of standing on my shins, And then I'm just kind of sliding from one hip to the other and put all of my weight onto one shin. It has two effects. On one hand, it oils my hip. You will feel a lot of noise in your hip. And secondly, it really conditions the ankles to reach full extension. Because again, if you haven't been spending much time on the floor and you've been wearing a lot of tight shoes, you have probably very stiff ankles. And to be able to kneel like that, that's like a prerequisite that I believe every human being should be able to do, because it's just a basic level of mobility, or flexibility rather in that case, that you should achieve. And if you're not, you will again be injury prone. Remember that everything about kinetic hygiene is to make you injury resistant and actually comfortable in your body. That your body feels something that is light and easy to move. So here I'm doing a bit of kneeling runners. This is just an additional little lateral rocker you can do where the butt is mid-air. And for those who like running patterns, it really kind of strengthens the posture and alignment from your glutes all the way into the spine, and it gives you the right type of angle that you need for activity, like jumping, running, lifting, and so on. Now moving on to the pigeon stretch. Okay, this is a very known stretch from yoga, which I like to do because again, your glutes are notoriously tight if you just keep them under the chair all day and you really just only walk and you don't do much. So I do it a little bit different than yogis. I like to engage it and turn that stretch into an active shape or active posture, where I'm basing on my left leg and my right leg and keep the pelvis in the air. And then I like to bounce and I like to move my head and torso around and turn that shape into, something organic, something that, I will find myself in when I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I will find myself in sometimes when I'm, doing parkour and I fall. A lot of this theory about kinetic hygiene and being cleanliness and injury resistant comes from, how do I deal with the unexpected? How do I deal with, situations that I will find myself in when things go wrong? Will I be, supple enough to not break? Because it is mainly also inspired by watching the kids. Children are like the masters in this. They have this suppleness, because it's still, they still have it since birth. They didn't lose it yet, and that's really the great layer of protection. That's why also kids can take so much more risks, because they're not really afraid of falling, and if they fall, never something happens. Whereas us adults, one small mistake, and we can dislocate our shoulders, break our hip, break our ankle. I've seen so many freak injuries over stuff that should never happen, but people are so clunky and uncoordinated due to their stiff bodies. It's really sad. Now, as you see, I always go back into child's pose. I always reset. After any kind of hip stretch or hip and opening, I like to get back into that default shape because it clicks everything back into place. Okay, now moving on, we're going into some groin stretches. I call this the side lunge. And notice that as I'm bending towards my base leg, I'm pivoting on my back knee. Okay, that little pivot in all directions creates different stretches in different angles of the hip. Okay, now this is a bit more hip flexor deep, whereas in the beginning I was more a bit on the adductors. And again, with the same theory that life is chaotic, life is goes in unpredictable ways, and I just want to make sure that my hips have been in all kinds of situations and all kinds of directions under control, so that I actually am injury resistant. A lot of what I do is really inspired by BJJ, because in jiu-jitsu you're literally forced into some very weird positions, and if you've never been there and you're not comfortable going there, you will be injured guaranteed. So yeah, this is again like a little groin stretch that really touches on all the angles and on all major thigh muscles, and the ones that I miss, I later have other stretches to touch them up. Once I'm done, again, you see I always retreat back into child's pose. Again, the great reset position. It's also the position that we're born in. It's also the position we get into when we are, hurt, when we are, maybe suffering food poisoning, when we're cold. It's really a position of retreat and protection and healing and resetting. So go into child pose frequently whenever you do a lot of lower body stretches. Now and again, now I'm repeating the same thing on the other side. Yeah, again, I just like to point out that I really just go by feeling, you know, and something that people might think is like, is that the best way to get flexible? It's like, I am not looking really for flexibility, you know, I'm looking for soft tissue. You know, you can have soft tissue and not be very flexible, although that's very rare. Usually when you soften up your tissue, you do get more flexible. But if primarily only flexibility is your goal, I would recommend a bit of a different approach. You know, this is really meant to just, you know, get rid of the noise, make the tissue soft and supple, and, you know, yeah, again, we just create a nice little prerequisite for you to, you know, move without restrictions, you know. Move without restraints. That's really the goal. I want people to be comfortable in their skin. Like you wouldn't believe how many great-looking athletes you see who are, you know, miserable because their bodies are in so much pain. They carry all that muscle and tightness, and you know, just like walking stairs hurts them. Like it's not even funny. Like how many even young athletes already in their 20s are already messed up, but from the outside they look really cool, look really good, and strong and healthy. But you know, health is really of how you feel all the time. That's really my belief. Good. Okay, now we are moving on. So again, I will now do a little quad stretch. Okay, and this is one of the most passive stretches I will do in this series. You see, I tuck my foot on one side, and then I start leaning back. Okay, so you see, in this case, my left leg is tucked, and you see I now just put two hands down. That's like a mid-level stretch. Now if I want to intensify the stretch, I go low and go on my elbows. You can see that my right thigh, from where you're looking, is now tucked underneath, and now I'm creating this quad stretch. Once I have both elbows down, that's almost the most intense stretch you can get into, and when both shoulders touch the floor, then you are at the maximum kind of maximum intensity to stretch the quad. And then again, I just relax here. I wait until the tension subsides, because you will resist this motion at first. You will arch your lower back really strong, and even your knee might lift up. But wait here. You can contract a few times with your quad, and then to exit, just roll out away to the other side, and your leg will just naturally pop up. Again, repeat the same thing on the other side, and here you can get a better angle on how I tuck my foot inside. You see, my heel is on the outside and my toe is on the inside. And then again, you see I go straight away into the both shoulder variation, which is the deepest stretch. Now again, for many of you that might not be possible, so don't push that deep right away. You know, just put maybe two palms behind your back. That might be already intense enough. And if not, put two elbows or just one elbow and see if that's enough. And then eventually you will lock it up and go to both shoulders flat on the floor. And you will have a quad which will not give you issues. A lot of the knee pain actually, and knee associated tendon pain, comes from having tight quads. So keep that in mind when you know, when you're looking for ways to remove knee pain. Always check on your quad flexibility. If it's not good or not decent at all, that might be a place to look for. All right, moving on. Now a little basic adductor stretch. You know, start on our shins once again, and then go onto your toes and separate your knees as far as you can. Okay, you might have to lift them up alternately to widen the gap, and then I just want you to simply do what I call a frog rocker. Okay, where you push your pelvis past your knee line or over your knee line, and then you push your pelvis while arching your lower back past the knees downward. And the entire time, try to keep the pelvis as low to the floor as you can. Okay? And again, like all of them, this is one will at first make a lot of noise. It will feel like a lot of complaint, almost like, I don't want to say it feels like it's dislocating, because it won't, but you know, you will definitely know that you haven't been in a position like this for a long time. But then again, if you want to have fun in life, you want to do stuff like jiu-jitsu, martial arts, dance, and so on, like you need adduction. Like, sorry, my apologies, abduction. Like your knees need to be able to separate if you want to like play more freely and do more of the fun stuff. So take your time with this one. You'll notice that pushing the hips down is probably the more intense stretch. So, you know, whenever you find yourself in something that is more intense, spend more time there. And you can come up onto your hands if you want to intensify the stretch. But being on your elbows for most people should be enough. So again, go back to your child's pose, reset the hips, especially after this one, it's very important. And we'll make sure that everything is back in place. Now we're going to go into curled toes. Again, that's a sitting position, very common in Japan. And a lot of people will find it very uncomfortable because it requires flexibility in the big toe. Okay. Now I want you to very gradually rock your weight back and forth. Okay. And if that's too much, then just lean forward. Okay. Don't even keep your head above your heels. Lean forward and just, you know, apply as much weight as you can handle, you know, because we want to slowly open up the arch of the foot so that the metatarsal, the balls of the foot, can reach the floor. Next, we go into a deep resting squat. So separate the knees and create space for the torso, and then try to push your heels all the way back to the floor. Okay, this is a very narrow squat and probably the most, or in my opinion, the most difficult squat to do. So kind of keep your hands on the floor and see how far can you push your feet back. Notice how my feet are almost touching and pointing forward. That's what we want. And then if you can, you see here I let go of the floor and I am now in a fully flat, deep resting squat. If you cannot achieve that, then, you know, keep your heels a little bit higher and keep your hands on the floor, anchor them, so you can spend time in that position and it will slowly then open up. This is not an easy shape to achieve, and for many it will take a long time, but it's worth it, trust me. Like having good ankles, it's going to be good for you know, your knee health, your hip health. Like the deep resting squat has really so many benefits. So next I'm going to move into a calf stretch. Here my intention is to only stretch the calves, and you see I am placing my hands in all kinds of directions and distances, and I'm rocking my pelvis around to find the right quad stretch for me. I'm a big believer that you should be flexible in motion. So you should be able to go in and out of end ranges, sometimes then dynamically, and it should not be only a passive capability that you can just hold a shape. Okay, and again, that I repeat in the next move. So here I'm stretching my hamstrings, or softening my hamstrings rather, and yeah, push back and then keep your knees slightly bent if you cannot go with straight knees right away. Hug your elbows and make your torso really heavy. Okay, and then bounce. Just use the weight of your torso and then bounce up and down, and with your elbows you kind of try to reach for the ground. Okay, we also call this ballistic stretching, which I'm a big fan of, because it tends to soften the tissue faster. Okay, so this is it for part one. Now let's move on to the shoulders and arms. So with the arms, really, one of the easy ways to kind of clean them and keep them soft is through whipping or swinging or throwing them around, as you see here. What I'm basically doing is I'm just rotating around my axis and I'm swinging my arms, and I'm imagining that they are very loose ropes and they fall wherever they fall. And it is that act of keeping the arms relaxed that pull on the shoulder joints. So basically any muscle that is attached to the arm then creates you know, traction. You know, there's a pull when you're whipping your arms around. Once they're relaxed, I begin with a figure 8 swing. Okay. Now, I will go into more detail later, but as you see, this is an infinity swing. So I'm basically creating a circle in front of me and one behind me, and then I'm connecting the two together. This also has the benefit of really pulling very strongly on all the muscles attached to the arm, mainly the chest and the lat muscle. And if you do like 20-30 swings of those and you start moving around one arm and the other one has not been, you know, stretched yet, you will feel a massive difference. So that stretch alone, do not underestimate it. It's very powerful. So here's how it looks in detail. You want to create a circle in front of you. Okay? So you kind of draw a circle right in front of you. Imagine there's a tall wall in front of you, so that circle must be tall. And then I want you to make another circle behind you. Okay? So imagine that you're standing between two tall walls, one right in front, one back. And you see now I connect the two circles together. So I swing once, and then I complete another round behind me, and then again one in front of me, whilst always keeping the same direction of the swing. Don't worry if you can't figure out this movement right away, it will take some time, but when you do, just keep swinging and you will feel that it is a very natural, and very like relaxing swing. Like the arm really enjoys this kind of stimulus. So really put your whole body weight into it and don't make the mistake of staying stiff. You should really relax your arm as if it was something that is just attached, like a loose rope that is attached to your shoulder. This is how you should swing it to get the maximum benefit. And now shoulders and arms, part 2, using traction. For this routine, I want you to set the ring and get it around sternum level. Then grab with 2 hands, both thumbs facing in, and I want you to get into this hammock shape. Okay? So you kind of butt scoot forward as much as you can, as far as you can, and then just relax. And now we're going to work on half moons. Okay? You're going to rotate around your axis being your hands and your legs, through the spine. And then I want you to get onto 1/2 of your side. Okay? This is a very intense stretch on the lat muscle, which is notoriously tight in all people because we don't do really any kind of overhead work anymore. We don't really hang or climb. And that muscle is huge, so if it gets tight, it really impairs the shoulder. Like it really takes the mobility and capability away from the shoulder. And then one day you kind of flinch or you react and you lift your arm and it pops. It's a very common story with people who have like these non-contact injuries. It's because they have super tight shoulders, and it's due to really having a tight latissimus or large back muscle and also a tight chest. So this is our first one. We kind of stretch both sides. Again, I'm not counting, I'm not measuring my time, I'm just waiting to see how far can I open it, and then when it doesn't open any further, I stop. Now for those of you who want to go a little bit more advanced and want to push it a little further, now again, I don't recommend this stretch to everybody, but you can roll through on your front. Okay, so you go from 1/2 moon stretch and you roll over with your chest down to the other side. Again, you have to keep your elbows a little bit bent because it's quite an intense stretch on the shoulders, like I'm doing here. I want you to know that I'm not the most flexible person you'll meet, but I'm very decently flexible, and I'm flexible enough to do all the activities that I like without pain. Okay? Sometimes you don't need to work your way all the way to middle splits and back bridges and things like that just to enjoy a pain-free life. But there is definitely a default level flexibility you should attain, which will make life a lot more easier. So you see now I'm kind of improvising, kind of flowing through. Once my sides are open, I can do it a little bit faster. So that's first. Next, we are going to open the chest, which is the other muscle group that really keeps our shoulder tight and trapped. So for this routine, you grab only with one hand and use the other hand to support your body. We want to move the body around while the arm stays attached. And then you might notice that I'm spiraling my wrist open, and that gives me like a deep access to the chest and allows my body to be curved. It almost looks like I'm doing an upside down one arm bridge or a yoga wheel. You can call it like that. And then from here, what I basically want to do is I want to spiral around my axis once again, my axis only being 1 this time. And I can go one way and always arrive back in the same position. So I'm starting out with this chest stretch, and then I move over, I go into this single arm side stretch, and then I roll through into the chest stretch again. This is at first quite intense, so really use your limbs, your knees and elbows, and you might even have to use them to come up a little bit higher like I do, so you can transition through it cleanly. And then one thing I really like to do is I like to just spiral my arm in and out. You see, kind of I'm pulling my shoulder in and I'm pulling it out. And I'm doing it mainly because I notice there's a lot of noise when I do that. And for me, anytime I detect noise, I'm working on removing it. That's really my goal. So that's why, again, if you sum it up in 2 words, kinetic hygiene is really the practice. Okay, we're just cleaning until there's nothing to clean. And as a result, you know, we get that suppleness and good feeling. So here I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of rotating my wrist, which rotates my arm, which rotates my shoulder. And then, you know, I'm kind of intuitively working that area to keep it cleaner. So all in all, it's a very simple practice. You know, the shoulders, all they really need is, they need traction. They need to be pulled, and you need to get into all these different angles. You know, because it's a rotary joint, or rotational joint, meaning that it goes and spins around the axis, and it goes in all kinds of different shapes and positions. And like, as we know, the shoulder joint is the freest of all joints, and also that makes it the most vulnerable, which needs, you know, be pulled and stretched in really all the angles you can find. You know, it's a lot of experimentation with this. So there you go, guys. This is my routine. You know, this is pretty hard on the grips, so I like to stretch a little bit my wrists at the end, you know, with kind of 3 basic stretches. But all in all, that's what I believe you should do. You know, I believe this is the most important practice of all. You need it more than any other, more than strength, more than cardio, more than conditioning. And yeah, if you do that frequently and often, you'll have the benefit of having a pain-free and clean body. Thank you for your attention, and let me know in the comments what you think, and what would you like to know more about my approach to training and practice. With that being said, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.